In the wizarding world of Harry Potter, there is a moment that made millions of viewers around the globe burst into tears. The moment Severus Snape reveals his unspoken love for Lily Potter, a love that lasted a lifetime, transcending hatred and even death. Snape, once a cold-blooded antagonist, suddenly became the most tragic, most beautiful character of all. And Alan Rickman, with his gravelly voice and aching gaze, turned Snape into an icon that lived beyond the screen. Yet there is a little-known truth. While the world worshipped Snape, the man behind the black robes carried within him conflicts he could not resolve. Alan Rickman often felt trapped, wanted to leave the role, and even wrote bitter lines in his diary. It's as if nothing has changed, and it never will. Only after Alan Rickman's death in 2016 were his secret diaries published. They revealed a very different portrait. A brilliant actor who often felt pain, weariness, and conflict with the very character that made his name. Those pages speak not only of Snape, but of a deeply torn Alan Rickman, a man forever balanced on the edge between art and sacrifice. But the truth behind it is much darker. Alan Sidney Patrick Rickman was born on the 21st of February, 1946, in Acton, a suburb in West London. He was not born into stage glory, nor into an artistic family. His father, Bernard Rickman, worked in printing. His mother, Margaret, was a Welsh homemaker. They lived in a modest flat with their 4 children. Family life was not easy, but from the beginning, Alan displayed a singular sensitivity. Tragedy came early. When Alan was just 8, his father died of lung cancer. The loss left a profound void in his childhood. Already a quiet boy, Alan became even more reserved and inward. His mother shouldered the family alone, taking on multiple jobs to raise the children. That burden made Alan quickly grasp the weight of responsibility and the harshness of life feelings that would later seep into every role he played. Despite hardship, Alan had a natural gift for visual art. He won a scholarship to Chelsea College of Art and later to the Royal College of Art, where he studied graphic design. At the time, Alan Rickman did not imagine he would become an actor. He even opened a design studio with friends called Graffiti. To others, he looked like a promising graphic artist on a stable, safe career path. Fate, however, led him elsewhere. While studying and working, he grew increasingly captivated by body language, voice, and the expression of emotion. He joined amateur theater groups and was immediately noticed for his distinctive, husky voice and piercing gaze and on-stage presence impossible to ignore. At 26, Rickman made a bold decision. He applied to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, one of Britain's most prestigious acting schools. He was accepted. His time at RADA was not easy. He was older than most classmates, and he struggled financially to pursue his dream. But there he honed his craft, learned to control his voice and gesture, and most importantly found himself through acting. Teachers and peers soon realized Rickman did not merely act, he inhabited his characters, digging into the darkest corners of the human soul. That past of loss and a difficult childhood produced an Alan Rickman who was painfully sensitive, yet strong and determined. He entered acting not out of a hunger for fame, but from a deep need to express inner impulses, to connect with others' pain and joy. In those formative years, few could have guessed that the boy who lost his father early, the contented graphic designer, and the older student at RADA would one day become one of cinema's most unforgettable figures. And it was precisely those early wounds that prepared him for a harsh journey ahead, from London stages to Hollywood screens. Upon graduating from RADA in the mid-1972nd, Alan Rickman stepped into the profession with one clear advantage and one disadvantage. His advantage was his voice, deep, commanding, at once cold and emotive, a weapon that set him apart. His disadvantage was age. He was already in his 30s, much older than many peers. In an industry that favors youthful faces, Rickman was seen as late to the party. But that maturity made him different. He plunged into London's theater world, joining the Royal Shakespeare Company. On stage, he was often cast in complex, chilly, even villainous roles. He displayed near total control over every line and gesture audiences couldn't look away. Critics praised him as one of the most subtle and unsettling stage actors of his generation. A turning point came in 1985, when he played the Vicomte de Valmont in Les Liaisons Dangereuses in the West End. The role took him to Broadway in 1987, where he earned a Tony nomination. That was the watershed. Hollywood began to pay attention to the man with the icy gaze. In 1988, Rickman made his film debut as Hans Gruber in Die Hard and almost immediately became a legend. Gruber, the cool, razor-smart terrorist, is still considered one of cinema's greatest villains. Remarkably, Rickman was 41 at the time, a latecomer who rocketed to stardom with a single role. After Die Hard, he cemented his status in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991, as the wicked yet magnetic Sheriff of Nottingham. In Sense and Sensibility, 1995, as the quiet, compassionate Colonel Brandon. Then Michael Collins, 1996, Galaxy Quest, 1999. Whatever the role, Rickman compelled attention with a presence both authoritative and fragile. All of this, however, was merely preparation for the part that would forever define him, Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films. When Warner Brothers began casting the first movie, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, 2001, J.K. Rowling personally requested Rickman. She even divulged Snape's secret that this apparent villain carried a grand, tragic love so he could inhabit the role from the start with full understanding. Rickman hesitated at first, then agreed. From 2001 to 2011, over 8 films, he became Severus Snape, the cruel, unlikable professor who was also the hidden soul of the entire story. What made Rickman's Snape extraordinary was how he used every glance and pause to plant a feeling of contradiction in the audience. Hatred and pity, fear and respect. His voice, deep, elongated, icy, became a sound millions recognized. Snape, once a supporting character, became an emblem. Yet even as the glory mounted, dissatisfaction grew within Rickman. His journals show that as early as the second film he wrote, "It feels as though nothing has changed. The scripts lack depth. It's tiring." Though beloved by millions, Rickman often felt trapped in the very role that made him iconic. The more famous he grew, the more confined he became. He couldn't easily withdraw or refuse. Snape had become a global symbol, and both Warner Brothers and Rowling wanted him to continue. Behind the halo surrounding one of the most beloved characters in film history was an actor who repeatedly asked himself whether he was still a free artist or just Snape's shadow. And from here, the darkness began to eclipse the light in Alan Rickman's career. To millions of fans worldwide, Alan Rickman's Severus Snape is immortal. To Rickman himself, however, those 10 years in the black robes were a torn-apart journey. In the diaries published after his death, Rickman often wrote of exhaustion and frustration. In 2002, when Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets premiered, he noted, "It feels as though nothing has changed. Talking heads, no depth. I want to escape." For audiences, Snape was an alluring mystery. For Rickman, many scenes felt like empty repetition. He felt boxed into an image, turned into a commercial instrument rather than a free artist. What pained him most was the gap between his deep understanding of the character and scripts that often failed to mine that depth. He once confided, "The only reason I stay is because Joe Rowland told me Snape's secret. That secret, that Snape loved Lily Potter his entire life, was the only thing that kept him there." Each time the camera turned to him, he wasn't just acting. He carried a private grief only he knew, until the final installment revealed all. That burden drained him. At one point, he was hospitalized for prostate cancer, 2005. Yet he kept it quiet to continue filming. In his diary, he wrote, "I feel drained, as if the role is consuming me." Amid global adoration, he quietly battled illness and spiritual fatigue. Off-screen, pressure persisted. A reserved man who rarely shared much, Rickman had a relationship spanning over 40 years with Rima Horton. Both kept their lives intensely private, seldom appearing in public. Friends said he often avoided attention, even after becoming a global star. Fame, to him, was not joy but a chain. Part of his bitterness sprang from the conflict between love of art and Hollywood's commercialization. After a script meeting, he recorded in his diary, "This is not about art. This is about keeping a franchise alive." Beneath the glittering Harry Potter brand, Rickman saw another truth, a massive machine in which even a master actor was but a cog. Still, he never let audiences glimpse that turmoil. On screen, he gave Snape everything. Director David Yates recalled Rickman sitting alone for hours before filming his final scene, preparing himself. Snape's death in Harry's arms with tear-filled eyes and the whispered, "Look at me" was not only the character's end, but, in a way, a release for Rickman after a decade of constraint. But tragedy didn't stop there. Only a few years after the series ended, Rickman was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, a disease he kept from the public. In his final journal entries, he wrote little about fear of death and more about regret. Roles he had never tried, a childhood cut short, years given over to a role that caused him pain. Friends say he never regretted accepting Snape, but he regretted the price. The cost was not only his health, but the quiet sacrifices of an artist who yearned for freedom. Paradoxically, those conflicts and sorrows made his portrayal so alive. Snape is darkness, solitude, unrequited love, and Rickman distilled his own wounds to breathe life into him. Behind success, Rickman spent his final years in silence and endurance. Behind Severus Snape, Hogwarts' secret hero, stood a man full of contradictions, longing for freedom yet trapped in the role that made him immortal. In August 2015, in a quiet London room, Alan Rickman received the devastating news. He had pancreatic cancer. It cut like a cold blade through a man long accustomed to bearing pain in silence. He did not go public. He told only a few close friends and Rima Horton, his partner of more than 4 decades. He kept working in his final months. He voiced Absalom the Caterpillar in Alice Through the Looking Glass, 2016, a character that felt like an allegory for himself, wise, hushed, poised for a final transformation. He had also recently directed A Little Chaos, 2014, as if he knew his time was short. Friends said he remained courteous and witty, even as his body weakened. In his diary, he wrote simply, "I can feel it. The curtain is closing." No melodrama, no rage, just a calm acceptance from an artist who had lived fully with his contradictions and was ready to leave the stage. On the 14th of January, 2016, Alan Rickman passed away in London, aged 69. The news was kept private until the end. When announced, the film world shuddered. Harry Potter fans were stunned. Many wept. At King's Cross Station, home to the legendary Platform 9 3/4, thousands laid flowers, letters, even Slytherin scarves in his memory. On Twitter, Number Always, Snape's immortal word trended worldwide. A silent, loving farewell. Colleagues paid aching tributes. J.K. Rowling wrote, "There are no words to express how shocked and devastated I am to hear of Alan Rickman's death. He was a magnificent actor and a wonderful man." Daniel Radcliffe, who grew up with Rickman on set, said, "Alan was one of the greatest actors I will ever work with. But more than that, he was one of the most loyal and supportive people I've ever met." Emma Thompson called him a soulmate, and Ralph Fiennes admitted he couldn't imagine the world without Alan. Perhaps no scene is more haunting than Snape dying in Harry's arms, blood staining the floor of the boathouse, his eyes searching for Lily's reflection. For audiences, it was just a movie scene. But when Rickman died in real life, that image felt like foreshadowing, as if Snape and Rickman had become one. A character dies tragically, and an actor departs quietly, leaving an unfillable void. His funeral was private like his life. Discreet, simple, unshowy, no media lenses, only family and close friends. Outside though, millions of hearts turned toward him. To the public, Alan Rickman was not just an actor. He was a symbol of sincerity, a man of beautiful contradictions like Snape himself. The tragedy of Rickman's life was not his death, but the loneliness and pain he hid, revealed only through the diaries published after he was gone. Those conflicts made his passing feel even heavier, as though the world had lost not just a star, but the chance to truly understand him while he lived. The 14th of January, 2016, closed Alan Rickman's earthly journey. But for millions, it was not a full stop. It was the most sorrowful moment, the climax and tragedy of an artist who hid his pain behind his eyes, then left, bequeathing an eternal legacy. Alan Rickman has left this world, but he will never vanish from the audience's memory. His legacy is not only in unforgettable roles, but in the image of an artist who dared to live with contradiction, who sacrificed himself for his art. Severus Snape became one of the most complex, haunting figures in film history, and Alan Rickman was its soul. Without him, Snape might have been merely a harsh teacher. In Rickman's hands, Snape became an emblem of undying love and quiet sacrifice, a character audiences both despise and cherish, fear and revere. Beyond Harry Potter, his other roles, from Hans Gruber in Die Hard to Colonel Brandon in Sense and Sensibility, endure as proof of a master actor. Friends and colleagues remember him as sincere, witty, and deeply humane. The diaries published after his death only deepen our affection, an artist bearing many wounds, yet choosing silence and choosing to give. Above all, Alan Rickman reminds us that behind makeup, behind character, behind the silver screen glow, an actor is still just a human being with pain, love, and fragility. And it is precisely that fragility that made Alan Rickman immortal.